Hi, my friends. Greetings to all of you. Hope you have seen the last video, right? I hope you're preparing well, despite many rises in the cases as we see in the news, as there's a lot of uncertainty prevailing down the line. So we don't know what's going to happen, right? So despite anything that comes in front of you, just don't be scared. Don't let your guards down. Okay? Don't let your worry take over you, and don't think whether anything about exam postponement or something of that. Those things is taken care of with the institute, okay, but we need to be ready whenever the exam is given. Yes, there are many cases, many families are being affected. A lot of you can say heavy negative environment is going on. We don't know till how long does this corona will or the covid will leave its impact on us, right? So keeping all these things in mind, don't let your energy to study and excel be lowered because of the external circumstances. If there's any family person affected with it, I do understand how the thing goes there. So let do your best in helping them and keep your time for your preparation as you always do. Okay, don't let the things hamper your preparation there. Okay, now let's get started with chapter number 7. I hope you have studied till chapter number 6, completed the practice manual also. If not, please do that. Listen to the video and complete the side heading revision, then go to practice manual, write one answer at least a day. This will help you in writing well in the examination, because information systems control audit paper, ISCA paper says that though there are no amendments, the given thing must be written there well in a well manner. Mostly you must try to replicate as good as possible so that you can score good marks. The thing that happens here is that the issue what students face for this paper is the concept of remembering. You have to remember a lot of things here. You need to remember which concept is from which chapter. Many similar topics are there in this paper, so that's why you need to be very careful in your revision, and the only key to excel in this paper is to revise a lot and do the practice of writing. So saying all this, now let's get started with information technology. Regulatory issues, chapter number 7. Chapter number 7 also has 50 MCQ. So as we always do, we start with MCQ, we go to the HD revision chapter for revising few important concepts, and then come back to the MCQ and complete the entire chapter in smooth fashion. At max, I think even the last video took 1.5 hours, but I'm trying to complete this video as soon as possible. Okay, so let's get started. What is chapter 7? Chapter 7 deals with information technology regulatory issues, because you are dealing with information technology, you are dealing with the audit of doing it, you have developed the system. Now you need to know how to, technical maintenance, but you need to know even the regulatory information regarding the information technology, right? So in India, this information technology is governed by the Information Technology Act 2000. It was amended in 2008. So 2000, this Information Technology Act 2000 was brought because the government felt the necessity, the ongoing development of the nation. The cyber laws are very much important because of there are a lot of e-commerce transactions happening in India, and now with the effect of COVID-19, you can estimate the level of e-commerce things, digital business going on, and online things that happen, even online classes, online coaching, right, online training, even online consultation with the doctors, everything is mostly online. So that's why we need a act in place, and hence Information Technology Act 2000 was brought into picture. Then what is the major objective of Information Technology Act? This may come for 4 marks as an answer for you. So sorry, 4 marks as a question for you. I hope you're listening, right? I just said answer. I hope you got strike, ma'am. What are you saying? Right? So the major objectives of the Information Technology Act are to grant legal recognition of for the transactions carried out by the means of electronic data interchange and other means of electronic communication, commonly referred to as electronic commerce, in the place of paper based method of communication. So you must have legal access to the transactions done online. Then to give legal recognition to the digital signature for authentication of any information or matter which requires authentication under any law. To facilitate electronic filing of documents with the government departments, to facilitate electronic storage of data. Okay, and then to facilitate legal sanction to electronic fund transfer between bank and financial institutions, to give legal recognition for bookkeeping for keeping books of accounts in electronic format, to amend the Indian Penal Code, Indian Evidence Act, Bankers Book Evidence Act and Reserve Bank of India Act. This act needs the storage of information in physical format. So even the e-storing of the books is also a valid one, is given by this act. So this one, this is the main objective of bringing this Information Technology Act 2000 into the country. Let us see few MCQs as we always do. Dash is the global leader in the information governance, control, security, and audit. So, who is the global leader? So, among ISACA, COBIT, ISO 27001, ITIL, who is the global leader? So, we have been seeing these terms quite a few from last one or two videos, right? So, COBIT is a framework, ITIL is a practices, ISO 2001 is a standard. So, who is the global body or a global institute for information governance, control, security, and audit? It is ISACA. ISACA, just like ICI, it is an institute for maintaining the information technology, control, security, and audit. Then dash is the international best practice and certification standard. Remember the word standard for an information security management system. For ISMS, what is the best practice standard? Standard is always, you can go blindly say the ISO 27001. You can say, ma'am, why not ITIL? ITIL is a framework. ITIL is set of practices. Sorry, ITIL is not a framework, it is a set of practices. Therefore here the question is for standard. So best practices and certification standard is ISO 27001. Then we will be getting these punishments everything down in the explanation for detail, but still let us continue the bits and revise it. Okay, punishment for cyber terrorism. So cyber terrorism is mentioned in which section? Section 66 CFBD. So section 66F deals with the cyber terrorism. What are these sections dealing with? Let us see once again the section part down the line here. The reason why I'm scrolling is that you can even read when I'm trying to explain. That's the only reason why I'm going down. Okay. Yeah, section 66, we are here. Come on. 66 deals with computer related offenses, which is imprisonment up to 3 years or fine up to rupees 5 lakhs or both. 66A deals with punishment for sending offensive messages through electronic services. 66B deals with punishment for dishonestly receiving stolen computer or a communication device. What is the punishment? Imprisonment up to 3 years or fine up to 1 lakh or both. 66C punishment for identity theft. Identity theft is imprisonment of either description of a term. The term can be any term, it can be minimum any term, maximum 3 years, or and fine up to 1 lakh. It is not or, it is and, so both are applicable. Then 66D is punishment for cheating by personation by using computer resource. Means you're trying to replicate, be like someone else whom you are not, so you are trying to imitate somebody else. What is the punishment? Imprisonment of either description for a term that makes it to 3 years, means it can be from 1 day to 3 years, and fine up to 1 lakh. 66E punishment privacy for punishment for violation of privacy, imprisonment up to 3 years or fine up to 1 lakh or both. 66F punishment for cyber terrorism. Here we came, imprisonment which may extend to imprisonment for life, so just be careful, don't do the cyber terrorism kind of activity. Then intermediate is not to be liable in certain cases dealt by which section? So sorry, dealt by which chapter? Which chapter in this entire act says that intermediaries like the internet people are not liable for certain cases? This is said by the chapter number 12. So chapter number 12 says that intermediaries are not responsible for certain actions done by other party. Then dash is systematic approach to managing confidential or sensitive information so that it remains secure. So among the four, what is the main method of securing the information system? Information security management system, information security distribution system, information identity management system, information compliance management system. The question says that systematic approach to manage confidentiality of sensitive information to remain secure. So we are focusing on security. So as a clue, you can say information security management system, ISMS, is the right answer. Then the dash is a set of practices for IT service management that focuses on aligning IT service with the needs of the business. Set of practice. Set of practice always says comes to ITIL. Okay, set of practices is ITIL. So information technology infrastructure library is a set of practice for the IT service management that focuses on aligning the IT service with the needs of the business. Then comes delivery of service by service provider is mentioned in which section? So service provider is providing service, he is giving the delivery of service. Which section mentions it? Section 7, it has repeated twice here. Section 7 deals with this delivery of service by the service provider. Then, if any law says to retain document, then it should be retained in which format? Physical, electronic, or both? It should be maintained in both physical and it can be maintained in either physical or electronic. If it's mandatorily said to maintain both, it must be in both. But if any law says retain document, it is the choice is on the person who maintains it. He can keep it in physical mode or in electronic mode. Then, India became dash nation in the world to adopt cyber law by passing the Information Technology Act. India became with it became the 12th nation in the world to adopt a cyber laws by passing the Information Technology Act. Then, the key issues of electronic information impacting enterprise and audience are what level the electronic information is impacting the enterprises. Authenticity, is it affecting the authenticity? Yes. Authenticity of the information, reliability, and accessibility. All these three are affected by the electronic information, and these things of the electronic information is affecting the enterprise and the auditors. So these three of the electronic information must be taken care of. Then, dash means a system of secure key pair consisting of private key for creating a digital signature and a public key to verify the digital signature. So what do we need? We do so dash. What is the system? So dash is a system of secure a key pair consisting of private key for creating a digital signature and public key to verify digital signature. The system is called as asymmetric crypto system. Okay, certifying authority is a person who gives the authority to issue digital signature certificate. So he is not a system there. So asymmetric crypto system is a system of secure key pair consisting of private key for creating a digital signature and a public key to verify the digital signature. Okay, dash means any facility from where access to internet is offered by any person in the ordinary course of business to the members of the public. So what is the place where you get access to internet which is given in the ordinary course of business? Come on, you can make a guess. It is cyber cafe. So it's internet, you can say internet shop, internet store, or net cafe. So cyber cafe is a place where internet is offered by a person as an ordinary course of business. Then, dash means authentication of any electronic record by a subscriber by the means of electronic method or procedure in accordance with the provisions of section 3. As per provisions of section 3, a person is trying to authenticate, validate an electronic record in an electronic method. What is that called? That is called as what? Yes, you got it right. That's called digital signature. Right. Then, dash includes data, message, text, images, sound, voice, codes, computer programs, software, and database or microfilm or computer generated microfilm. So what will include? Certifying authority? No, certifying authority will not include that. Computer network is only the combination of different computers performing a particular work. No. Asymmetric crypto system is private key and public key concept. No. So what will include? So this definition is suitable for the term information. So information includes data, message, text, image, sound, voice, code, computer program, software, and database or microfilm or computer generated microfilm. Okay, dash is system asymmetric crypto system means a private key and its mathematical related public key which are so related that the public key can verify the digital signature created by the private key. So what is this definition called? This definition not law. This definition not license. This definition not public key. Public key is available outside there. So this definition is for the key pair. Key pair is an asymmetric crypto system means a private key and is mathematically related public key which are so related that the public key can verify a digital signature created by the private key. Then, the dash means computer hardware, software, and procedures that are reasonably secure from unauthorized access and misuse, provide a reasonable level of reliability and correct operation, are reasonably suited to perform the intended function. So, what is this? What is the definition suitable for? It is a security procedure, is a security practices, is a security system, or is security staff. So, what is let's read the question again. So, dash means computer hardware, software procedures that are reasonably secure, provide reasonable level of reliability and are sort of performing operation. So we are not doing any procedure here, we are not following any process, we are not following any practices prescribed elsewhere, we are not talking to any staff to do what not to do, but entirely we are talking about a secure system. So secure system means it is a completely environment including people, procedure, practices, right? So secure system means computer hardware, software, procedure which will reasonably secure from unauthorized access, provide reasonable level of reliability and correct operation, and reasonably suited to perform the intended function. Then, which definition below does not meet the term verify. So what, let us need to see among the four, let's, you can say D option you can remove, among the three which one will not meet the term verify. Okay, the initial electronic record was affixed by digital signature by use of private key and corresponding to the public key of subscriber. Yes, that is actually verification part. You write, you sign with the private key and is verified by the public key. Okay, that will meet the term. The initial electronic record was affixed by the digital signature by the use of public key corresponding to a private key. No, digital signature is never done by public key, it is done by private key only. So B will be suitable answer. Let us see C. The initial electronic record is written intact or has been altered such that since such electronic record was not affixed with digital signature. No, this the even C bit says that there is no alteration, there is no signature done. So that is not uh, uh, satisfying the above question there. So what is the C option says? The initial electronic record is written intact or has been altered since such electronic record was so fixed by digital signature. If you apply digital signature, either the documents get updated saying that it has been digitally signed, or if you have altered this in such a way that no impact has been done. Okay, so these A and B can satisfy the term verify, but if you come to B, it is not going to satisfy the term because always signature is done by the private key and then matched by the public key, which is given opposite in the B section there. Okay, then dash means an algorithm mapping or translation of one sequence of bits into another, generally small set known as hash result, such that what means you are converting one sequence of data into another sequence called as hash result, such that electronic record yields the same hash result every time the algorithm is executed with the same electronic record as the input makes it computationally infeasible. So what he is saying, so here you are trying to convert one sequence of input into another sequence, mostly smaller sequence, and it is called as hash result. It is done in such a way that every time when you execute, when you try to open up the electronic record, the same hash result is going to come. And if you do any small change in the electronic record, the hash result is not going to uh, not going to allow you to do that change. Or suppose in case if you do a small change or try to hamper the hash result, the electron record is not going to come out. So computation will become infeasible to trace out the electron record if there is a mistake or mismatch in the hash result. So what is this called? What is this function called? This function is called as hash function. Even the name itself is hash result hash function. So hash function means an algorithm mapping or translation of one sequence of bits into another, generally a small set called hash result, such that the electronic record yields the same hash result every time the algorithm is executed, and the same electronic record as its input, making it computationally infeasible. So if any one thing gets changed, the algorithm gets completely changed and you cannot access the electronic record. Then the private key and public key are unique to subscriber and constitute a dash, constitute a functioning key pair. It is not combined key pair because they are not, they are used to, they are given to a particular subscriber, but they are not always together. So one is used for signing, one is used for verifying. Therefore, it's a functioning key pair. Then, when all electronic signature or electronic authentication techniques shall be considered reliable. When do we consider that the electronic authentication technique that we are using to secure is reliable? First thing, the signature means when you do a signature thing with electronic format, when do you think it is reliable? When you do a sign, it will protect the document. When somebody tries to hamper it, it will show the changes done. If anybody knows your password and gets into the document, it shows the logs as to when it was accessed. So all this is comes from reliability, right? So when will we say that the electronic signature or electronic authentication technique shall be reliable? When first one, the signature creation data or the authentication data where at the time of signing, where under the control of signatory, means the person who is signing knows what he is signing and he sees it. It is not subject to modification without his control. Okay, and no other person has any kind of control over that data. Okay, any alteration to the electronic signature is made after fixing the signature is detectable. Yes, if anybody tries to hamper it, or if you only try to change some data after signature, it can be visible in the logs. Then any alteration to the information made after authentication of electronic signature is detectable. So any alteration done to the signature, any alteration to the information after fixing signature can be traceable. Then only we can say it's reliable. The technique is reliable. If you cannot trace who is changing it, then there is no reliability in the signature, right? So all A, C, and D will form part of the answer. Then the section dash lays down the foundation of electronic governance. Which section among all the four lays the foundation for the governance? 6, 7, 8, 9. Section 6 talks more about the electronic governance. Because it's a small number among the four, don't take it. Suppose if you give 3, 4, 5, 6, then That's fine. Delivery of service by service provider is covered in which section? So service provider delivery is covered in section 6A. Okay, let's once see the LDR and then come back to it, because then you'll get more clarity as to sections there. Okay, yeah. Section 3 talks about authentication of electronic record. Section 3A talks about electronic signature. Section 4 talks about legal recognition of electronic records. Section 5 talks about legal recognition of electronic signature. Section 6 talks about use of electronic record and electronic signature in government and its agency. 6A talks about delivery of service by service provider. 7 talks about retention of electronic records. 7A talks about audit of documents maintained in electronic form. So where we are following, we must ask the documents maintained in electronic form as per section 7A. Then section 8 publication of rules regulations in electronic gazette. Section 9 talks about 6, 7, 8 not to confer right to insist documents should be accepted in electronic form. Means in 6, 7, 8, though we are saying electronic signature, electronic form, etc., section 9 says that you must not compel anybody to have it in electronic form. They can have in physical form also. Section 10 power to make rules by central government in respect of electronic signature. Okay, then 10A talks about validity of contract formed through electronic means. What is the validity of contract which is executed online? Section 14 talks about secure electronic record. 15 talks about secure electronic signature. 16 talks about security procedure and practices. Then and from 43 we have penalties, so we can we just saw till section from 66. So let us see even these 5 penalties also. Section 43 deals with penalty for compensation for damage to computer system. What is the penalty? Liable to pay damages by the way of compensation to the person so affected. Section 43A compensation for failure to protect data. You are unable to protect data, it got leaked and damaged, so liable to pay damages to the person by way of compensation to whom it was affected. And section 44 penalty for failure to furnish information return. So every time you need to furnish some information return to certifying authority. If you are not doing it, then this penalty is going to attach. So fail to furnish to the controlling authority, it is 1,50,000. If you fail to furnish within the time specified, penalty not exceeding 5,000 rupees for every day of failure continues. So you fail to furnish, it's 1,50,000. Even after time specified, you got notice how many times if you did not do, then it is 5,000 per month, 5,000 per day. And then fail to maintain books of accounts or records, penalty not exceed 10,000 rupees for every day due default continues. So failure to furnish electronic record is 1,50,000. Failure to furnish even after the time specified is 5,000 per day. Failure to maintain books of accounts is 10,000 per day. Now section 44 residual penalty. If you done something which has not covered in this above section, then penalty is given under section 45 and it is 25,000 not exceeding that amount. Then section 65 is I think you have seen here that from 65 you have an awareness as to, we just covered it just now. Okay. Yeah, 65 is tampering with computer source documents. Source document you're trying to alter it or change it or destroy it. Then imprisonment is 3 years or fine up to 3 years. Means it can be from 1 day to 3 years, or fine up to rupees 2 lakhs, from 10,000 to 2 lakhs. Any amount can be up to 2 lakhs or both. So this is regarding the section. Let us come back now. So which section specifies the audit of documents made in electronic form? I guess now you can select it. It is section 7A. Section 7 is something where we need to ask the documents for. Okay, where any law provides that any rule, regulation, gazette, order, bylaw, notification, or any other matter are published in the official gazette, then under which section the same can be published in electronic gazette? Electronic gazette can be done in section number 8. If you see here, let's come back. Section number 8, it says publication of regulation in electronic gazette. 9 says that it is not mandatory, it is optional. Okay, power to make rules by central government in respect of electronic signatures is given by, come on people, is given by section number 10. You just saw it. Section 10 gives the power to central government to make electronic rules for electronic signature. Then which deals with computer containment. So what is the computer containment definition? Means any set of computer instructions if they are designed to computer contaminate. Sorry, it's contaminant. Contaminant means anything which is causing any harm, which is not pure, which is very harmful, dangerous. So we can say that is any instructions which are to modify, destroy, record, transmit data within the computer system or computer network. You're trying to remove the data. It is very bad, right? Then it is a computer contaminant. Then any instruction by the means of a step of normal operation, means trying to disturb the normal operation of the computer system, it is also computer contaminant. Both A and B will form part of the answer here. Then dash means any computer instruction, information, data or program that destroys, damages, degrades or adversely affects the performance of a computer resource or attaches itself to another computer resource or operation when a program, data or instruction is executed or some other event takes place in that computer resource. Means what is the instruction called which is residing in the computer resource and it tries to destroy. What is that instruction, computer instruction or information called which is present in the computer resource that can destroy, damage the performance of the system, and it can next, which means what means an computer instruction, information, data or program that destroys, damages, degrades or adversely affects the performance of a computer. So what of these four will adversely affect the performance of a computer? It is done by the computer virus. So asset will never degrade it, resource will never degrade, or damage will slightly reduce but never degrade it. So computer virus means any computer instruction, information, data or program that destroys, damages, degrades or adversely affects the performance of a computer resource or attaches itself to another computer resource and uh, operates whenever an instruction is given to the particular computer resource there. Okay, means the virus is activated upon receiving certain command or after a certain point of time, those kinds of things. Then come on, and what is the penalty for failure to furnish information written in which section? So I think this we have just covered the section numbers. So which section deals with the information written and charges penalty for it? Section 44, right? Let us see. Section 44 deals with penalty for failure to furnish information written. So this the penalty is 1,50,000. Failure to furnish with specified time 5,000 per day, and failure to maintain books of accounts is not exceed 10,000 rupees per day for the continuous failures. Then penalty for failure to furnish information written is dash. How much penalty? Penalty is 1,50,000. We just saw that, right? Yes. Then amount of residuary penalty. Come on, this section 45, right? Section 45 residuary penalty. It will be 25,000. Okay, good. Till here we are doing good. So now let's come back again to certain MCQ questions, certain LDR revisions. Okay. Let us now see about section 3, authentication of electronic records. What does it mean? It means you're signing and validating a record, right? So any subscriber who is having, or any person who's having digital signature can sign and record electronically. Okay, so he will authenticate the document using electronic signature, and that is done by the system of asymmetric crypto system and hash function. What will happen in this? He will sign with his digital signature, of which the hash function will convert the electronic record into another unknown encrypted format. Okay, and whenever that hash result is executed with that algorithm, then the electron record is able to be, you can see the electron record when the hash result is put into action. So if any damages or any such changes is done to hash result, then algorithm will not work and the electron record you can't see. So it say you can't tamper with the hash result. If you tamper, you can't see the document what you have signed. So that is a way of protecting the document by signing electronically. Okay, then a person by the use of public key of the subscriber can verify the electronic record, because every digital signature has public and private key. So private key is very unique to the subscriber, he can only use and sign it, but the verification can be done by any person who has public key. Okay, I think we have even got an MCQ just now saying that public key and private key constitute a functioning key pair, right? This is the one thing. Okay, so yeah, then comes when shall we consider that the electronic signature or electronic authentication technique is reliable? When do you consider that it is reliable? When you do something, it must be protected, it must have security, right? It must be authentic, then only you can say the method what you follow is reliable. So it shall be considered reliable if the signature creation data or the authentication data are within the context in which they are using are linked to signatory or the authenticator. So the person who is signing or whose authority has the sole authority on the data for which the signature is being created. Okay, then the signature creation data or the authentication data where at time of signing, where at the control of signature no other person. So what you can say here the data, okay, is in control, is linked to the signatory in the first point, is in the control of signatory. So he is the person who is signing, has entire authority on that data. Okay, then any alteration done to electronic signature after fixing it, it can be detectable, like who did it, how, when it happened, from where did it happen, that can be detected. And any alteration to the information after authentication will also be detected, and such that the condition as may prescribed. If these things are there, then you can say that the electronic signature or electronic authentication technique is reliable. Then comes to section 7, retention of electronic record. Retention of electronic record is given in section 7. So whether law provides that document, records, information, etc. retained to any specific period must be maintained, and the law is required to be satisfied if you even maintain it in electronic format. Means physical format or electronic format is optional, related to it, is the option depends upon the person, the way he wants to maintain it. But if law says to maintain in a books of accounts, he can maintain any physical or electronic mode. But the thing is that if you maintain electronic mode, the information must be accessible for subsequent use. It's not that you keep it somewhere you can't trace it out. And then it must be written in the same format in which it was generated, sent or received, and details must be accurately present in that. And details must there must be a detail showing the identification from where the document was generated, at what time it was dispatched, whatever it was stored, everything, that log must be there. And provided this clause does not apply to any information which is automatically generated solely for the purpose of enabling an electronic record to be dispatched or received. Means any automatic transactions like email, there you may get some email saying that this only computer generated email. There is something which is given by the system itself as acknowledgement. That things are not considered here. But any specifically documents must be retained or kept in preserved, or it must be like any audit report. So those kinds of things, it must be kept in electronic mode, and it can be, and it should follow these guidelines. Okay. Then, what is section 10? It talks about the powers to make rules by central government respect of electronic signature. Means the central government may say what is the type of signature and what manner of format it has to keep. Like example, if you say the central government says once you sign the signature, your name must be in full below. So that must be taken care of. And then the manner and procedure in which it facilitates identification of person. Suppose it can say that you have to log on to so and so portal, upload the document, then connect the DSC. So the manner and procedure in which it facilitates identification of the person affixing electronic signature, control process and procedure to ensure that adequate integrity, security, confidentiality of the electronic records or payments are there. So it can make rules regarding that also. So the government can make rules on type of electronic signature, manner and format in which signature has to be done, manner and procedure for verifying the identity of the person who is making the electronic signature, control process and procedure to ensure that there is integrity, confidentiality, security of the electronic records and payments. So rules can be made on that, and any other matter which is required to give legal effect to electronic signature. So for these things, central government under section 10 of the act has power to make rules. Okay, then there are certain authorities, right? Certain authorities describe the requirement for the information system audit, and other not only audit, in the information system maintenance. For example, insurance sector, RBI, banking, SEBI, stock marketing. These people need that there should be a information system control in the organization, and they must be responsible person for that, and there should be an audit. Before going into this, let us once come back down for certain important topic which I want to cover up before I go there. Okay, so here what I want to cover is that, yeah, this one, ISO 27001. This standard is important because it is an international organization for standard. ISO means International Organization for Standards, ISO, and the International Electrotechnical Commission. These two define how the organization information security must be there. The organization can be any form, any kind, like a public, private, profit, non-profit, but for any organization, how the information security should be there. So what does how does the standard work? It will require the management that the management systematically examines the organization's information security risk. So what are the risks which the information security of the organization? Management must verify it. Then it must design and implement comprehensive, suitable information security controls and form risk assessment and address those risks. Okay, it must adopt an approach which will ensure that the information security is in control of the organization. Then these two are taken care by the ISO 27001. In the ISO, there's one more part. ISO 27001 is to 2005. It is also one of the standards among the part of the ISO standards. Okay, so here this focuses on a systematic approach to manage confidential or sensitive information in the organization. So this information security management system, this standard ISO 27001 to 2005, focuses on the systematic approach to manage confidential or sensitive information so that it remains secure, intact. Okay, what are the four phases of ISMS? The four phases of ISMS, like you have this plan, do, check and act, this PDCA cycle. So you plan how the organization, what is the basic organization information security system needs, and then you do, like you carry out what is planned in the activity to provide proper controls. You check if the phase, in this phase you check if all the channels have been covered and results you are getting appropriately and all risk are being covered. Then act, in the act phase you improve everything that was identified as non-compliant in the check phase. So PDC cycle is an ongoing continuous revolving cycle. Okay, then yeah, in this thing, in we have one more standard like ISO 20 to 27001 to 2013. So this is also the next version of the ISMS, and here what does it do? It requires it includes the requirement for assessment and treatment of the information security risk. The above one treats about confidentiality, but when you're trying to protect confidentiality, you get some risk in the PDCA cycle, right? So here this one treats that assessment and treatment of information security risk. The requirements set out in the 27001 to 2013 are very generic, so every organization can use this requirement, and you can see this format, see the specification of the standard, and see if the organization meeting them or not. So in this, what happened in this new model, the PDCA cycle was actually removed. The reason was that this PDCA cycle is a continuous one, but general any organization needs continuous improvement of the information security systems. So the other two approaches were the other approaches other than PDCA were implemented here. So here what has happened is that uh, in 20, in this standard ISO IEC 27001 to 2013, it specifies that the requirement of information security maintenance and risk management is very generic for all organizations, and specifies 114 controls in 14 groups. So it classified all the controls which is necessary for managing the risk into 14 groups. So you need to remember, not that 14 group names, but the 14 groups are given in 10 short clauses. So what is the clauses? It is given in and a long annexure. So this clauses and annexure has the 14 groups and 114 controls in it. So what are the clauses? First one is scope, second normative reference clause. No need to go deep into what does it mean, just understand the definition, understand the words there. Terms and definitions, context of the organization, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, improvement annexure A, list of controls and their objectives. So these clauses must be seen by every organization, apply whatever applies to them. Okay, then what are the benefit of having this international standard? First thing, it is extension of the current quality system. You're not bringing something new, you are having an upgraded version there. It provides opportunity to identify and manage the risk. It provides confidence among the trading partners and provides assurance that the risks are under control, and allows an independent review and assurance, so the auditors can take up the standard and see if they're properly following it or not, right? Then why does the company, so these are benefits general by anybody following the ISO standard, but why does the company adopt it? It adopts because it is suitable for protecting critical sensitive information. It is designed by experts now, so experts know what kind of risk faced by the organization, so company is comfortable in following one particular standard. Then it provides holistic risk based approach to secure information, right? It demonstrates credibility, trust, satisfaction. It demonstrates security state among according to international accepted criteria. Creates a market differentiation due to prestige image, like if you say we are the company following so and so international standard, it is a prestige issue. Then if a company is certified one, it is accepted globally, people believe the company who is following international standards. And again we also have SA 402. That is SA 402, what does it deal? It deals to audit considerations relating to the entity using service organization. Like if you're trying to use the services of another organization and I'm the author of your organization, I try to even assess the information security risk faced by that organization because it's providing services to you, right? So accordingly, as per given by the ICAI, the auditor must take care into consideration even those standard also. Then comes the important part. This may come for 4 marks for you. What is ITIL? It came in most of the MCQs. So ITIL is Information Technology Infrastructure Library. What is it? Is a set of practices. Practices means it is a set of defined a plan of action. What to be done, what not to be done, what good to happen there. So the set of practices for IT service management. So when you want to have IT system in place, and you must continuously upgrade the IT system so that your systems will be secure and data will be protected. So how to maintain that? It is given by this ITIL. It focuses on aligning IT services with the needs of the business. Okay, then it is published. It published in five. It has five core publications and it covers the entire information technology security management life cycle. So it covers the entire security system life cycle. So when does the security need arises? How does it arise? What to do? What not? When the need gets end? How to get upgraded? Everything will be covered in the ITSM. Then ITIL prescribes procedure, tasks, and checklists that are not organized specific. Always remember, the international standards are never organized specific. They just ensure that everybody has some piece out of the standards there. Then, so what are the five volumes covered in the ITIL? There's service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, and continual service improvement. So service strategy deals with strategic management approach regarding the IT service management. So how does management views when and how we need to serve the IT needs of the organization. So strategic analysis, planning, positioning strategies, leveraging the service management, etc. are taken care in the service strategy. In service design, we translate the plan objectives into action, like how we want to approach the service management. We take that plan and design it into action. Then in transition, when we design and implement new things, we help the organization to transit from the old system to the new system. Then operation, service operation, we provide guidance on the guidance to the management of the service to day-to-day activity. This is not done by the auditor. This is done by the management itself. Is providing a guide, like if there will be a team, will be providing the upper management and the entire organization as to how to operate the IT service in the organization. Then comes continuous service improvement. Continuous service improvement provides guidance on measurement of service performance through service life cycle. So the entire life cycle of a particular information security service is taken care. We see where possible improvements can be done so that we can get maximum benefits out of it. Okay, then what are the examples of service strategy? In service strategy, what did we just saw? Service strategy means it deals with management approach in respect of IT service management. So IT service strategy means IT service generation, service portfolio management, financial management, demand management, business relationship management. So here the management is taking care of the it deals with the strategies taken care by the management. So management must take care of all these five factors while designing an IT service measurement, because if you want the information technology to work, it works in every part of the organization. So these sectors play important role while IT frames a major part. So in order to protect and improve and upgrade the information system for these areas, the strategies are being drawn, right? And what is service design? When the strategy is drawn, we see what kind of activity can be taken care and what design must be drawn for the execution of the above strategy. So what are the categories in that? We see service catalog management, means what are the plan of action to do. Service level management. Availability management means are the people we have the capacity to do we have availability of the sources in the organization. Then capacity management. IT service continuity management, do we have the ability to continue to provide the service. Then information security management, of course that must be there. When you're trying to design, you must keep in mind the information security also. Then transition, once we design, we try to transit from old to new, so we see the transition planning support. Then change management evaluation, how is the management changing, how are we evaluating the change. A service asset and configuration management, so every time we try to move to a new system, what are we migrating or not. The release and deployment management, who are being deployed and who are being released from the service. Service validation and testing, how the system is being working now, how the security culture is there. Then knowledge management. Then comes service transition. This is not service transition, it is service operation. Okay, please ignore this service operation. In operation, what we see, operation talks about how the management must do day-to-day activities, providing guidance, support, etc. So here when we need support, we need service desk, a person to explain us. Application management, IT operation, IT technical support, incident management, everything mishap happens there, how is it being coordinated. The request fulfillment, if you need extra space, extra GB to do the work, so how the space is being provided. For example, grid computing, how that area is being allocated to you. Then access management, who is needing access for what, in security management also. Then event management and problem management. So these talks with the ITIL components. So before going to the balance of the sections, okay, let us once go back to the requirements given by the various regulatory authorities, which will say the need for the existence of system audit and also system control and management in the organization. Okay, so that will also sometimes you may get 4 marks answer out of this also. Last time I think information regulatory development authority, this requirement have come there, so we can't take anything to be just a casual stuff there. We must study each and everything and understand reproducing the answer in the examination, right? Okay, so the Insurance Regulatory Development Authority needs have certain requirement for system audit. They need auditing to be done for once in every 3 years, and the current auditor is not eligible for appointment as system auditor. And the firm which is to be appointed as system auditor must have minimum 3 to 4 years of experience in the information system security audit. Then in system control, what it needs is the insurance company to maintain. It requires maintain electronic transfer of data without manual intervention, and system should be seamlessly integrated. Then auditor must comment on the audit trail. So what logs they are maintaining, auditor must comment. And auditor should also ascertain that system has separate logins for every user and maintain trails of every transaction related to login ID. So the auditor must also see that every user has separate logins, and whoever, whenever, from where they have logged in, every trail must be maintained. So in simple, audit trail must be effective. This is what IRDA wants. Then RBA, what does RBA need in system audit? It needs the duty of the system programmer designer should not be assigned to same person on operating system. So a person who's operating must not be a designer, because if he's designer and he's operator, he knows the loopholes to plant. So that is what RBI is focusing on. And also it needs a bank must require or must always have an information system audit function, or you can say information security audit function within the internal audit department by and led by IS audit head reporting to internal audit head. So internal audit must always have an information security system or information system audit separate wing in the internal audit department, and that head must report to internal audit head. Audit function is required to be independent, competent, and exercise due professional care. Of course he has to do that. Okay, then here is one more thing is coming here, just a minute. There's one more here, please try to remove this thing, this part of the RBI only. Okay, this maybe this thing got replicated. Okay, chalo. Next comes other things needed by the RBI in the system audit are, it needs that the contingency procedure or contingency plan for the system failure must be tested by the auditor. It also needs that the appropriate control measures should be devised and documented to protect the computer from any unscrupulous activity, like any person trying to hack the bank computer. It must be taken care by the auditor. The controls are there or not, he must verify it. Then a formal method of incorporating change in standard software must be seen, like how the software of the bank is being changed or upgraded, what is the controls available in that. Then ensuring that institution system of internal control operates effectively. So there are board of directors and the management responsible for the institution's internal control. That internal control is working effectively or not must be taken care by the auditor. Then annual review of the information systems audit policy. So how and what are the plans taken care to do the audit, that must be taken, seen and verified by the auditor. Banks are required to conduct quality assurance at least once in every 3 years. So quality audit assurance audit also must be done by the bank. This is requirement of the RBI. Then in system control, what does the RBI still more need? It needs that the IS audit should be independent of the auditee. Of course, the auditor must be independent of auditee in both attitude and appearance, and it will and the it also needs that auditor's independence. It should ensure that auditor's independence, and he has access to application information. Like auditor must be restricted, he must have access to all information. Then auditor must have right to conduct independent data inspection analysis. He must be independent in appearance, attitude. He must have independence to access the data, and he must have right to conduct the data inspection analysis. And he must be professionally competent, like he must know all the skills required to audit a bank and audit a bank audit a bank, and also have a knowledge of the information system audit regarding the bank, like he must have proper training, skills, knowledge, etc. Then critical IT general controls such as data center controls and process and critical business application must have which are having impact on the financial aspect of the banks must be needed to subject to information security audit. Means those controls, like like where manager approval is required, which are somewhat very important, or where there is an IT information technology change, software upgradation, the IT general control, these things which have impact upon the major activities of the bank, those things must cover under the IS audit. Then IS audit will also cover the bank and mostly focus on the medium sized bank. And testing controls and development and developing new system, new type of test, and implementing review of the tested application must be taken care by the auditor, and those tests must be designed and implemented effectively. So he has to do a proper planning of conducting the test. Then a review of the process to ensure data integrity after implementing new application. So he must have a process in mind that need and not the auditor, even the bank must have process in place to ensure that the data is authentic and the same even after implementing the new system. Any always the system gets upgraded, right? Whenever the upgradation take place, the data will not get changed. It must taken care by the bank. Then IS auditor must validate IT risk before launching a product or service. So in the bank there must be, the RBI needs that the bank must have protocol, and also auditor must also have a thought that the he has to validate all the IT risk before launching a new product. If the risk is more, he has to take precautions accordingly. Then he has also discussed with the management for any disagreements regarding risk. Regarding the sorry, regarding risk. So if when he does this verification or validation of the IT risk before launching a new product, if there any management says no, this is not a big risk for us, but auditor feels it is a big risk for the bank, then he has to discuss with both of them and take a decision accordingly. So this is what required in the system control from in the bank from the RBI perspective. Then comes SEBI. What does SEBI needs in the audit? The audit, SEBI says that audit shall be conducted according to the norms, terms of reference and guidelines issued by SEBI. Yes, the Board of Stock Exchange shall appoint the auditor. The proposal from the auditor must be submitted to SEBI for records. Next, the audit schedule shall be submitted to SEBI at least 2 months advance, and SEBI can increase the audit scope. Okay, the scope can be extended by SEBI. Then audit has to be conducted and audit report has to be submitted to the auditee. So the audit does not give it to SEBI; it gives to the board. There may be stock exchange board or the immediate intermediary board, and who is getting audited, and that person must give the report to SEBI after having all specific compliance non-compliance rectified. So whatever given in the report, he has to understand, make a rectification, do corrective action, write even the answer for that, and then submit to SEBI. The auditing management provides he provides the comments and confirmations regarding the observation, and then take necessary action and give it to SEBI. Again, SEBI can advise any follow-up action if required. Then, in system control, the SEBI requires that along with audit report, the stock exchange depository must submit a declaration from the MD CEO certifying that the IT systems are secure and they have integrity in them. So the board must certify that these systems are very secure and have proper internal control, and a proper audit trail for the upload, modification, download of KYC data is to be maintained. Go to any mutual fund if your father has, and then try to take a copy of that. You can see when it was purchased, what price it was purchased, when it was dividend, is it reinvestment or is it dividend declaration, or when the KYC was submitted. Everything will be given in the audit trail. Okay, that is regarding the SEBI requirements. Okay, what generally for anything before start, as per IRDA, what information does the auditor must obtain before starting the audit? So this one is regarding the information to be collected by the auditor. So he must find out location from where investment activity is conducted, from where the people are trying to invest in the particular funds. So is it from any central server or is it from any different places? Then IT application used to manage the insurance investment portfolio, because invest a huge amount. What is the application used to manage that? Then obtain the system layout of the IT and network infrastructure. Try to know how is the system in the organization. Then are the systems and application hosted on central location or they're hosted at different locations? You need to, the auditor must see that. He will also ask a previous audit report and also see the issues which are not yet resolved. Then he must also try to see and understand internal circulars and guidelines of the insurer. So what all guidelines he has given, are the people following or not? Then what is the standard operating procedure of the particular auditee? Then list of new products and funds introduced by the auditee under the review of IRDA. So without IRDA approval, the insurance company can't bring any new products. So new type of policy it can't release. So what are the new things that have been approved by IRDA and released by these people here? Then script wise all investments, which funds they're investing, where they're investing, how they're investing, all the details must be seen by the auditor. Then what all correspondence done with the IRDA, what notification received from IRDA, those things, a file must be maintained and the auditor must check that file. Then IT security policy, what does the insurance company have in place, and what are the business continuity plan they're having if there is a sudden disaster, and what are the network security reports pertaining to IT assets these people are maintaining. So assets must be protected, right? So what network security, how the network is being guarded, firewall, how many breaches have been taken, how many hacks have happened. So these things must be taken care by the auditor. Okay, then comes Yeah, SEBI auditor selection norms. In SEBI auditor selection norm, the auditor must be minimum 3 years of experience in IT audit. He must have experience in and also have direct access to experience resources. Like he must have qualifications like CISA, CISM, ISACA, etc. And he must also have IT audit governance framework. So he must have knowledge on the frameworks like COBIT in understanding the IT practices. Then he must not have any conflict of interest in conducting the he must not have any conflict of interest with the auditing. Okay, and uh, yeah, and he should not be engaged in the last 3 years in any of the consulting engagement also. Like it is not just sufficient if he is not the auditor. He must for advice also they must not have been approached to him. Then the auditor may not have any case pending against his previous audit which was a SEBI jurisdiction. So nothing case must be against the auditor must not have any case against the previous audit. Means he must not have filed any cases with the SEBI, or he must not have any kind of conflict with the audit which is falling under SEBI jurisdiction. Okay, then comes cyber forensic and cyber fraud investigation. What does this mean? It means any fraud happening on net. So forensic means you're trying to do the investigation. So cyber forensic or cyber fraud investigation means those criminal acts happening on the on cyber world, on the internet world, we are being trying to investigate and control them. So we have National Cyber Security Policy 2013 in India. Okay, what is the vision of that? It is to build secure and resilient cyberspace for citizen, business, and government, and the mission, and the mission is to protect the information and information infrastructure in cyberspace, build the capability to prevent and respond to cyber threat, reduce vulnerability and minimize the damage from cyber incident through combination of institutional structure, people, process, technology, and cooperation. Very big mission, no need to remember, just try to understand. So what are the policies? Create a secure cyber ecosystem, provide assurance framework for design of security policy, strengthen regulatory framework, enhance and create a national and sectoral 24/7 mechanism for obtaining strategic information regarding threat to the information infrastructure. Then enhance the protection and resilience of the national critical information infrastructure. So that we have a framework called national critical information infrastructure, which will be protecting the you can say the important information at the national level. So that protection must be given to the system there. So you need to enhance the protection to that. Then develop suitable indigenous secure technologies, improve visibility of integration of the information communication technologies, or like now GST completely automated, we can find the credits everything, right? So that kind of visibility and integrity must be done. Create a workforce of 5 lakh professionals in the coming 5 years. Okay, then like that if you can go through, you can find like it's trying to create a culture of cyber security to develop the cyber secure space so secure that the transactions are not there is no fear of doing a transaction online. Okay, so these kind of benefits, like if you once go through these benefits, is more than sufficient. Then not no need to remember word by word there. So that is regarding the national cyber security policy. Then lastly we have this yeah, we have this penalties we have seen in the starting of the video, but I think few we are left behind, right? So I think we have covered till 66 F. Yeah, then 67 section deals with punishment for publishing or transmitting obscene material in the electronic form. What is the first conviction? Imprisonment up to 3 years and fine up to 5 lakhs. Second and subsequent conviction, the imprisonment may go up to term 5 years and up to 10 lakhs. So 67, that is the section 67. 67A deals with punishment for publishing or transmitting of material containing sexually explicit act in the electronic form. Same is a penalty, we have 5 years and up to 10 lakhs. Second is 7 years and up to 10 lakhs. Only the distinct is it is here 3 years and 5 years, it is 5 years and 7 years. 67B, here any act involving children. Okay, when children are involved, it is again 5 years to 10 lakhs. The second is 7 years to 10 lakhs. 67C, preservation and retention of information by intermediaries. Intermediaries, if they don't preserve information, then imprisonment for a term which makes it 3 years, and also liable for a fine up to rupees up to fine. Yeah, the fine amount not be specified, it can be any amount. Then section 68, power of the controller to give directions. So the controller of the certifying authority, who is above the certifying authority, if he fails to give a direction, then imprisonment of to 2 years or fine up to 1 lakh or both. Then section 69, power to issue directions for interception or monitoring or decryption of any information. So uh, you're trying to you trying to break a certain path of the information, trying to decrypt it. So with such kind of thing, you have imprisonment for a term which may go up to 7 years, and also for a fine which is not specified. Then 69A, power to issue directions imprisonment for a term which may extend to 7 years and shall also be uh, liable for fine for blocking for public access to any information through computer resource. So you're trying to block people, to block the public access to particular resources, then you will be getting the punishment. Okay, the punishment can be up to 7 years, and also fine is applicable. 69B, power to authorize and monitor collect traffic data or information through any computer source for cyber security. So cyber security people are trying to protect the thing, but you are trying to collect any information, breaking them. So information can be for a term which can be to 3 years and also be fine. Then section 70 talks about protected system, 78 talks about national nodal agency, 70B talks about Indian computer emergency response team to serve as a national agency for incident response. Then 71A talks about penalty for misrepresentation. Misrepresentation means giving something wrong data, then imprisonment up to 2 years or for up to 1 lakh or both. Section 72 deals with penalty for breach of confidentiality and privacy, that is imprisonment up to 2 years or fine up to 1 lakh or both. 72A talks with public punishment for disclosure of information in breach of lawful contract. So you should not disclose what you disclosed. There is imprisonment up to 3 years or fine up to 5 lakhs or both. Section 73, penalty for publishing electronic signature certificate false with certain particulars. So the electronic signature you have been issued, you have published it with false information, then imprisonment up to 2 years or 1 lakh rupee fine or both. 74 section deals with publication of fraudulent purpose, imprisonment up to 2 years or fine up to 1 lakh or both. So the 75 talks about act to apply for offences and contravention come to outside India, because IT information technology can apply even outside India also. 76 is for confiscation of the talks about confiscation of electronic computers or assets. Section 79 talks for the exemption for liability of intermediate certain cases, like the intermediate is not responsible for the offence committed by the person using the system. 79A talks about central government to notify examiner of electronic evidence. So there will be a person examining if the electronic evidence is proper or not. Section 80 talks about power of police officer and officers to enter and search. They want to search any computer record or they want to see any information regarding the information system assets. Section 80 gives them power. 81 talks about application of the act to electronic check and truncated check. And 85 talks about offence by the company. So what is offence by the company? So company will commits any offence under this act or any other rule or direction made by the made there under the company, and every person who at the time of the contravention was there available in the company will be responsible to the company for the conduct of the business, and he shall be held guilty and proceeded against, provided that if he shows that the contravention took place without his knowledge and he has exercised all the due diligence to prevent such contravention, then he will be exempted. Okay. And suppose if it is provided, it is proved that the contravention has taken place with the consent of that person, director, manager, secretary, any other officer of the company, then all those people who are there will be the director, manager or secretary or other officer of the company shall be deemed to be guilty of the contravention. Okay, we have a few important definitions which you can go through. So this will cover our chapter number 7, and now will be last chapter, moving to chapter number 8, which will be taken coming in the upcoming video. So let's complete the last bits here. In section 66B, punishment for dishonestly receiving the stolen computer or communication device is given. What is the penalty? The penalty is term up to 3 years or 5 to 1 lakh rupees, right? Then punishment for cyber terrorism is life imprisonment. Section 67A, punishment for publishing or transmitting material containing the other act in the electronic form. If we have the first imprisonment is the 5 years and up to, come on, it is first time imprisonment, right? It is 5 years up to 10 lakhs. Then, and if it's second time imprisonment, it is 7 years and up to 20 lakhs. No, 7 years up to 10 lakhs only, sorry. Amount is same, year gets differentiated. Which section has the power to authorize the monitor and collect traffic data or information through any computer resource for cyber security, which is authorizing section. Authorizing section is 69B. It gives the power to collect any information for cyber security needs. Then dash means a computer resource the incapacitation or destruction of which shall have the debilitating impact on national security, economy, public and safety. So you can say critical information structure. So critical information infrastructure is the resource which has impact on national level and national security. The national nodal agency shall be responsible for what? It shall be responsible for research and development relating to protection of critical infrastructure. So critical information infrastructure is protected by national nodal agency. Then dash to serve as a national nodal agency for incident response. For incident response, we have Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, which serves as a national nodal agency for incident response. The functions of Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, generally you can say all BCND. It collects, analyzes, disseminates information. It forecasts, alerts cyber security incident. It emergency measure for handling cyber security incident. Then what is the penalty for misrepresentation as in 71 and penalty for breach of confidentiality and privacy? So generally they have same penalties for 2 years or 1 lakh or both. We have here revised it, so this will become easy for you. Punishment for disclosure information breach of lawful contract. Lawful contract is always 3 years and 5 lakhs. 3 years or 5 lakhs or both. So I think even D is also the right answer. Yeah, so you can take A or D. Okay, then the penalty for publishing electronic signature certificate falls in certain particulars, section number 73. So electronic signature certificate you're giving false, so it is again 2 years, 1 lakh or both is the penalty. What steps that an enterprise must not take with regard to compliance with cyber laws? So what it must not take? It must designate cyber law compliance officer. It must conduct regular training. It must be no. It must have strict procedure, not light procedure for HR policy. So that is not part with the cyber laws. Right? Implement authentication project. This is required. These all A, C, and D are required, but C is not required. Offenses companies are covered under section 85. Just saw that. Okay, then as per IRDA, CFO must have minimum of 3 years of experience, right? So we can take the 3 to 4 years of experience of IT systems in bank or mutual fund or insurance company. What are the preliminaries of insurance audit that must be checked by the auditor? So you can just say all B, C, and D because you must say location, new product, script wise investment, etc. Audit schedule should be submitted to SEBI at least dash in advance. At least how many months in advance? At least 2 months in advance, along with the scope of current audit and previous audit. For stock exchange depository, the auditor can perform maximum audit for 3 successive years. See how easy if you revise. For each non-compliance, which is a specific time-bound corrective action must be taken within the reported to SEBI on the non-conformity and observation given by the auditor. Within how many months he has to take? He has to, for each non-conformity with a specific time bound, the he has to take an action within 4 months. Okay, within 4 months he has to take an action report to SEBI. The National Cyber Security Policy 2013 aims to create a workforce of dash in the coming 5 years, a workforce of 5 lakhs in the coming 5 years. So this is the regarding chapter number 7, my friends. Next we are going to chapter number 8, and then you can complete the entire IXCA revision. And next we'll be moving to MCQs released by the ICAI, covering the case study based MCQs also. Okay, till then keep studying and happy revision.